So, Anne, tell me the story of Bhimnidi Tiwari's two deaths again.
Yeah.
I thought you narrated it with great poignancy and really captured the sadness of it.
Yeah, that one. So that's two deaths. Dilash. I didn't think two corpses would be a really good title, so I said two deaths. So,
Right.
yeah, that one is about.
The aesthetic choices that you have to make also when you're going back and forth
Yeah,
between the
right.
languages. Yeah.
You can't do everything word for word. Yeah.
I thought your translations really captured the gist of the Nepali stories without getting mired in that kind of, when you're translating straight from Nepali to English, it can really get a little flowery. And
Yeah.
so I think you really cut to the chase when it comes to the poetic heart of the story.
Oh, good. Good, thanks. Yeah. Yeah, that one, Bhimini Tiwari, but he's a very good writer. I mean, he was a really good writer. I really liked his work. I mean, that story was just heartbreaking. That was about a woman who, it's interesting, he was talking about how she had a chapto nak, and not Brahmin. She was a not Brahmin person. and how she had been, working in the Rana household before, and then the wife found out that she was having an affair with the Rana guy, threw her out by her hair onto the street, but he found out about it and managed to slip her some money, so she at least was able to survive for a while. But then she was with another guy, but turns out who knows, she immediately hooked up with this other guy, and 7 months later had a baby. So the guy was like, is that my child or not? She was pregnant for 7 months, It's kind of like, and he stayed with her for a while, and then after a while he thought, I'll wait for the baby to grow up or something, see if it looks like me, I don't know. But it didn't, he thought. So he just left. He left her, so she has this 2-year-old baby girl. Of course, the boy, that probably would have been a whole different thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. But
or maybe not.
I don't know.
Yeah, out of wedlock, I think it was a big stigma during those days.
For sure, yeah. But it starts out, they're watching the Lakhe. She's living in Indochok. They're looking through their little Akijel, watching the Lakhe dance. And then, describing some stuff with that. And then all of a sudden the Lakhe, I looked at this again, the Lakhe slipped and fell and hurt his knee. And then he went limping off. So that was kind of, telling you what's going to happen in the story. It's not it's not auspicious.
Okay, right.
So then, at that moment, that's when this other guy, this kind of hip young guy with a cigarette, and on his hip bicycle, with his sunglasses or whatever, he comes over under her. He had seen her. She was looking out the window, and he had noticed her. She was pretty good looking. So he came over, and he had a little silver cigarette case, and he just tossed it into the window and went off. And there she was, just silver, beautiful. Anyway, so they hooked up, and that became her new guy, And that was went on for a while, but then at some point he was like, look, you have this 2-year-old daughter, and everybody's starting to say to me, it really looks bad. You're with this girl, she's got a 2-year-old daughter by some other man. I mean, if you're gonna get together with her and marry her, which he wanted to do, you have to get rid of the girl. Somehow why don't you send her to her father? Why do you have to bring her up? Send her to the father. So after he left, she was just like, but who's her father? How can I, A, how do I send her either way to her father? And B, I don't even know which one is her father, actually. So she can't send the girl back to the Rana household. That's impossible. And the other guy, she doesn't even know where he went. He just disappeared. So there's just not a possibility. So, and the girl is, running around being cute and all that. And she's like, I can't, how can I? And then she falls asleep, and then she wakes up really early in the morning. It's babao or something, so it's raining. The Vishnumati River is really big, close to where she's living. And all of a sudden, and she just looks over and her daughter is sleeping. And she just sort of had this sudden decision, and she just picks her daughter up and starts walking toward the river. And her daughter kind of wakes up and is like, where are we going? And she's like, shh, shut up. And they get to the river, and it's just flood, And she looks around, and it's early, so there's nobody there. And she's thinking, there's nobody looking. and she throws her daughter into the river. And then all of a sudden, as soon as she does that, she's like, "Oh my God, what have I done? I can't throw," and she jumps in after her. And then they both drown.
The river takes them both.
Yeah, the river takes them both.
Such a tragic story.
I know. Yeah. So that one is really powerful.
So do you find that, you've been translating these stories that go all the way back from the early part of the century, I imagine, like early part of the 20th century to modern times, right?
The earliest one is 1937.
Okay.
I think that's Naso, I believe, Guru Prasad Manali's story. And then the most recent one was 1993. That's Dhruva Sapkota, The Scream.
Okay.
It's about the Baden Niharu.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. And do you find that there has been a shift in perception in the way society, views women, and has it come out through the writings, or is it a lot about the pain and the suffering?
It is a lot about the pain and the suffering. I mean, I think, there's just been a shift, obviously, in that, obviously now women can work and outside the house, and there are some laws which can be enforced that are in the favor of women, all that's happened, of course, and that was reflected in the stories, but it seems like even so, mostly what they were writing about was the troubles, the difficulties, like this one by Manju Kansuli was about more like I don't know what people might be like, well, that's a first world problem compared to the woman who had to throw her baby in the river, you know what I mean?
Right.
But still.
And Manju Kanchuliji's story is about what?
So her story is about a woman who had been to school with, or she goes back to see an old friend she had been to school with, right? And because she remembered how this old girlfriend used to be this amazing artist, and there was no art school at that time in Kathmandu, but had there been, she would have gone to art school, And so then they're talking about, or maybe I'm misremembering it, maybe she went to art school after that, but now she's married, right? But she is kind of an amazing artist, so she just goes to visit her one day because she herself is an artist too, and she wants to invite her to an opening. So she goes into the house and she's talking. She's like, "So what's up? Have you been doing your art? Have you, And it's this big house in the middle of Kathmandu. They've got servants making the meals, and it's all very, they're very well off and everything. She's wearing nice jewelry and stuff. And then her husband comes into the room. They introduce each other. She's like, "Oh yeah, I went to school with her." And then she's like, "Yeah, I'm inviting you guys to this function, this art function." And he picks up the thing and looks at the date. And he's like, "Oh, we're going necklace shopping that day. We can't go to that." and she's like, "Come on, it's art. You can go necklace shopping any day.
Yeah.
You can't go to this any day." And so she finally convinces him. But you can tell, all the time he's taking over and saying everything. And the woman is just disappearing over there, She's like, "Well, if he says I can go," she doesn't have the option to just go, or she doesn't think she does, And then when she asked her the question of, because then the husband goes out again, "Well, do you ever draw?" And she's like, "When am I going to draw? This is a household of 12 people, I'm the buhari, Even though they have all these servants doing the hard labor of actually cooking and stuff.
Right.
But she still has to, put the shoes on the children and make sure they get out the door at this right time, and then make sure that the cooks are cooking the right thing and that they've bought the right stuff. And it's still
a lot of management.
It's management, right? So she still didn't have time to do that. And then also there's this memory of, she used to have this some kind of illness. She would, in art school, she would be ill all the time. And so she just said, "Do you still have that illness?" And she's like, No, that's gone. I used to get really nauseous and dizzy. So they come to that function, that art function, right, later in the story. And suddenly during the function, she gets really sick and ill and dizzy again.
Oh.
And the friend's like, "What's going on?" She said that wasn't happening to her anymore for years, And so she helps her to get home. And then it comes out she realizes it's because of this guy who was the art teacher who apparently tried to rape her in art school, who was her teacher.
Okay.
And that's why she quit the art thing. She was like, he was the one who was saying I was such a great artist, and then he tried to rape me, and then so I figured my art is no good, or something like that, you know. And then
Wow, that's pretty powerful.
I know.
Yeah.
And then the friend is like, look, you can still do art. You can get over this. You should. I'll help you. What do you need? You know. And the woman says, well, listen, go to my mighty and bring all those art things over here, if you would, next time you come. So she does. She brings all the stuff, and she's taking it out of the taxi. And then she goes back to pay the taxi, right? And she comes back into the courtyard, and her friend is there, and she had poured kerosene over all that and lit it on fire.
Oh my God.
Before she could, like, do anything.
Right.
And that's, like, the end of the story.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh.
I know. It's, like, tragic. So that's tragic, like, on a different level. It's more modern, but it's just as tragic. You know? Yeah. It's almost like throwing her baby into the river, right? Like she's setting it on fire. Yeah. Yeah.